type of system called cycle piston. You integrate them in the motors of the car. You can retrofit the pistons to the motors, and it can save from 20 to 25% of fuel.
Oh, wow.
And it's trying right now to create partnership with like manufacturers,
Yeah.
big manufacturers. And if you can do that and implement the distance in it.
Are they connected to the Daimler? You know, Daimler has a accelerator here at Temple Factory.
I don't know.
Around mobility. You,
Maybe because I know he already has Luke, the founder, already has a membership in another accelerator, so he might capitalize. We are.
yeah. Yeah, I guess Ride Austin, a couple of rideshare startups that Daimler ended up buying, and they merged them together. And one of the guys that was the CFO of one of those, they were trying to relocate him to Portland. He didn't want to go, and Daimler offered him to stay here and form like a mobility vehicle kind of oriented thing. Essentially, companies that Daimler may want to buy eventually. It's
Charlie?
It's called like Mobility X or something.
Mobility X.
Yeah. And it's here. It's like right around.
Because I think Mobility X is the name of a room where we have the network tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right over here.
Okay.
But it's Daimler.
Okay.
It's a partnership between them and Capital Factory, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. They'd be good. It seems like they'd be good for your piston company to be, under the wing of a giant car company. You know?
Yeah, that's all he's about right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he gets.
How does electric cars play into the?
Well, what he told me is just right now the world is not entirely ready. We don't have these products that's an auto car and to operate them. We don't have enough energy stations.
Yeah.
It will take a while before the electric cars actually take a big part of the market. So
Yeah.
what he's trying to do right now is to reduce the fuel efficiency. No, to improve the fuel efficiency, and after the electric car comes, maybe in 20 years or something.
Yeah.
But his technology won't work with electric car because there's no piston.
Yeah, there's no piston. Yeah. Yeah, I guess then the question would be like, how quickly will pistons become obsolete? Is that going to happen in 50 years or 10?
Yeah. And the thing is, it will spread really slowly, I think, over the world. It started in Western country, but from the time it reached Southwest Indonesia, something like that, it will take a century.
Yeah, and there are still pistons and generators and stuff.
And another thing,
There's always going to be a need for that.
you retrofitted it to adapt it to military stuff too. So you can put his piece on military tech, military.
Oh yeah.
He retrofitted it from the motorcycle to the big trucks from the Caterpillar.
Yeah, we're not going to be free of pistons.
Not yet.
Yeah. Maybe in vehicles, but not in all uses.
Talk about Bitcoin so much. You talked about Bitcoin all the time, so I booked you speaking to the Austrians group. That's really funny. drinking and talk about, oh, like, I was like, stand up there and talk about this and be like, but
All right, welcome everybody. If you are sitting in the back row, you have to sit in one of these first two rows now. It's all right, we're gonna move everybody up a little bit. You guys are fine, you don't have to. Okay, you were in one of the designated rows already. Has everyone been having a good experience with NewCo so far? Seen some cool stuff? Oh, you guys have only are only seen this one. But there's lots of great stuff going on. I hope that you guys have a lot of exciting plans for the rest of the day as well. My name is Ellison Glantz, and I'm here on behalf of 3 Day Startup, which is a company that offices out of Capital Factory. And we're really excited to be hosting a session for NewCo again this year. We did one last year, and we really hope to help continue this relationship. And NewCo would love if you guys would share your experiences and your stories, what you loved about the conference, with their hashtag NewCoATX. And also feel free to follow them or 3 Day Startup on Twitter. We're just at 3 Day Startup if you want to follow us as well. We have to end the session at exactly the 45-minute mark, so you guys have time to move on to your next sessions and plenty of time to get there because not everything is in a very close proximity. And the 3 Day Startup, we're going to tell you guys a little bit about what we do as a company as well. But why we decided to join NewCo is because we've been a big part of the Austin community for about 9 years now, ever since we started our very first program at the University of Texas at Austin in 2008. And so we're really excited to talk to you guys about how we've grown and what we've learned over those past years and how it affects the Austin community for entrepreneurs and startups. So on a large scale, this session is about survivorship bias and the myth of the visionary in the entrepreneurship landscape, particularly for young and aspiring entrepreneurs that we've encountered in our programs over the years. But it's also going to tell you guys a little bit about how we function as an organization and how the programs that we deliver sort of combat some of these assumptions and misconceptions about entrepreneurship and that landscape. So again, my name is Ellison Glantz. I'm a 3 Day Startup program manager, brand journalist, and facilitator for our programs. I was also a former early hire at a startup in Austin, so I've been sort of steeped in the culture here for a little while now, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about what I've learned so far. 3 Day Startup itself is a nonprofit organization that delivers intensive, hands-on, experiential entrepreneurship programs to college and university students across the world. And the reason why we sort of came about as an organization is because our founders were a lot of grad students at the University of Texas. And they discovered that, listening in on lectures and reading books about entrepreneurship wasn't really helping to prepare them to start companies. They wanted a more hands-on approach. So that's why they designed 3 Day Startup, the first 3 Day Startup program, to address that issue. And we actually expanded internationally in our very second program because a German exchange student at the first program was really excited about the impact that that program had on them and took it to their home university in Germany. So we've been international ever since the beginning, and we've been spreading ever since. So far we have 12,000 alumni from across over 400 programs that we've done so far at 150 different schools across the world. And a lot of those alumni have gone on to do some pretty incredible things. Over 90 companies have come out of 3 Day Startup programs. And when we say companies, we mean that these aren't just 1 or 2 people sitting around still sort of planning and working on their idea. It's past participants and alumni who have incorporated, have raised funding, have active customers, and have a couple of employees as well that we count as companies within the scope of 3 Day Startup. Over 34 of those have gone on to participate in incubators and accelerators, including 500 Startups, Techstars, and Capital Factory itself. And they've collectively raised over $84 million in investor capital so far. But that's not necessarily the end goal of the 3 Day Startup program. That's not why we do what we do. We do what we do because we very strongly believe that the experience of entrepreneurship unlocks human potential in unique and powerful ways. And that's whether you want to start a company or whether you want to innovate in a pre-existing company, or just want to become a better problem solver, more efficient thinker across all parts of your life. And that's why we're so excited to continue our work with our partner schools and talk to you guys a little bit about it today. Now, we're here to talk about startups in the landscape of entrepreneurship though, and we can't do that without talking to you guys about Silicon Valley. Acknowledging that this is a still from Silicon Valley, the TV show, that only goes to show how popular that sort of brand of entrepreneurship has become in America right now. A lot of students that we talk about are really excited about building startups like the ones that you see in this picture. They aspire to become like Mark Zuckerberg, to achieve success like Uber did, but hopefully without all the scandal, and continue to grow their startups in the biggest hub in the world. However, the problem with that is that 90% of startups fail. Now, failure is part of entrepreneurship, and we all have to acknowledge that. But that's a pretty substantial percentage for how aspirational students are when they begin. So we have to think about, well, if 90% of startups fail, how are we framing success for entrepreneurs? And how do they frame it for themselves? At most of the programs that I go to facilitate, most of the students that I talk to, when they're looking at becoming an entrepreneur, it's because they want to be their own boss and make their own hours and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what they want to achieve is, as a mark of success, is wealth. They want to make money, and they think that entrepreneurship is one of the best, most efficient ways that they can do that. This is something that a student told me at one of the most recent programs that I facilitated, that the reason why he came to our program was so that he could make $1 million by the age of 23, which, is a large goal. But admittedly, if you do become a successful, in the generic sense, entrepreneur, that's one of the best ways you can do that at that young of an age. He wanted to become someone like Mark Zuckerberg. And so that's sort of the kind of entrepreneur that people are wanting to aspire to. So we also have to address, how are we framing entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs themselves in the current climate that are making young, innovative people want to become like them? A lot of them see entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, and they see a visionary, someone who took an incredible idea, made something completely new, innovated in this space, and essentially changed the world as we see it today. And that is something that they're really drawn to, something that they're really interested in. They think that they have this idea in their head that they want to deliver to the world and make these big changes and make these big innovations and make millions and millions of dollars. But that's not exactly how entrepreneurship typically works. The idea that to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be a visionary or have a visionary idea is sort of a misconception. A visionary idea in and of itself isn't very effective without having, the foundation underneath it that people really need, what you're trying to present to them. The idea that you have this beautiful idea in your head that you think is worth $1 billion, and the idea of $1 billion idea in and of itself is an assumption that drives a lot of young entrepreneurs. It's why a lot of them want to take a program like 3-Day Startup, but they come out of it with a lot more skills and understanding of what they actually need to take that idea and put it into the world in an efficient way. Because most entrepreneurs aren't going to be like Steve Jobs, and that's okay. We can't have someone like that as the cap of success for entrepreneurs, or the understanding of what it means to be an entrepreneur for the next generation. And that's what we sort of reframe within our own programs. Because a lot of people think of entrepreneurs and startup founders as a high ranking of success. It's very admirable to try and do something like this, especially in the United States, less so in some of the other countries that we go to. But in fact, a lot of startup entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs are really more like starving artists, which have a much more negative connotation in the United States. Both of them are highly aspirational. They are very, very high risk. As we talked about, that 90% of startups fail. It's very high risk that you're going to fail within the first year, which is okay for entrepreneurs, but you have to keep working and keep pushing forward, getting up off of your feet to actually become a successful entrepreneur. And that's not something that a lot of people are necessarily willing to do. There's an unclear path to success. It's not like working in a big company or mature company. There's not steps that you can climb on the corporate ladder. People become entrepreneurs in different and highly variable ways, and they achieve success in different and highly variable ways. So it's difficult for you to completely track someone else's, map to success on your own in entrepreneurship. And they need to appeal to the masses. Without support from customers or audiences, you're not going to get very far with either of these. And of course, both entrepreneurs and starving artists need a lot of luck along the way too. But the problem that we consistently run up into is that young people will aspire to be who they see in any given industry, particularly in entrepreneurship and in the arts. In the arts, not everyone's going to be Meryl Streep. I think we all have that kind of underlying understanding. But in entrepreneurship, again, not everyone is going to be Zuckerberg or Jobs or Elon Musk. These people are outliers, and we have to treat them as such. In most of our, programs, we have a lot of students who think of that as a goal that they can, keep working towards. That if they have the right luck, if they have the right idea, that they might be able to reach a height like this. But that's a completely, massive goal to be setting for yourself as a young entrepreneur, even though most of these people started when they were students as well. You can't count them as the rule. They are always the exception. But we champion outliers in the startup world. These are the most visible people in that space. These are, the aspirational few, the biggest, billionaires, the most influential people, and you can't treat them like they might be the norm or attainable for the average entrepreneur, or even that they should be. Not everyone in that space should hit that ground. Because survivorship bias, thinking that if they just keep working at it or if they have the right idea, they can hit that mark, plagues entrepreneurship. And it stops people from addressing the real problems and actually making big impact in their communities. Now, we need to talk more about the actual failures. If 90% of startups fail, we have to talk about why. What are these failures? What can we learn from them? Not just looking at the successes in that space. The only people who are doing that right now, as is often the case for very innovative thinking, are the Swedes, who have their Museum of Failure Innovation, where they really celebrate these works and look through them. And we don't really address failed startups so much in the United States. If you're a success, you're a success. If you're a failure, you're nothing. But when failure is such an inherent part of entrepreneurship, we can't think about it that way. We have to work to change the narrative of how failure can benefit young entrepreneurs and what they can learn from it. So again, if 90% of startups fail, we also have to think about why that might be. And part of it is that 42% of that is because there's no market need for the product that they're developing, which is another, symptom of that visionary status, that, the championing of the brilliant idea and not of the actual market research, which is in fact much more important to the actual success of a startup or of an entrepreneurial venture. So, what is the best way to set up entrepreneurs for success? Well, it's not by telling them that their brilliant idea is going to change the world or that there is such a thing as a billion-dollar idea. Too many students that we meet at our programs, really, they come in with this idea that they've been thinking about on their own for months and months, maybe even years, and their dream is to turn it into a viable venture. But they haven't done any market research yet, and they haven't gone out and talked to potential customers, and they don't know if it's something that there is actually a market need for. A lot of entrepreneurs keep working on that kind of idea without altering their course, and that ultimately leads to their failure, and a huge percentage of it. So that shows us really the impact of this dichotomy that we face in the entrepreneurial landscape, particularly for young entrepreneurs, between the individual vision and the market research. You have a lot of people who focus solely on this portion of it. But the most important part, and the part that actually takes probably the most time, which is also a deterrent for it, is this market research segment. And that's what we try to instill in participants at 3-Day Startup programs through taking them through customer discovery and forcing them to go through an iterative process early on in their work so that they don't get too hung up on their individual ideas. However, of course, it still happens. People love their ideas. That's part of the pitfall that leads to that 42%. At a pretty recent program that I facilitated, we had a participant who'd probably watched too many episodes of Black Mirror and decided that he wanted to create these pair of glasses, sort of like Snapchat spectacles, that would be constantly recording. And if you saw something happen in front of you that you wish you had recorded, you can press a button on it and it would back record 30 seconds to a minute of what you had just seen. Now, ideally, it's kind of a cool-ish concept, but the technology there to have a constantly recording pair of glasses that is small enough and stylish enough to actually be marketable is, a fairly high bar. Second of all, this was a project that he was completely in love with and was very stubborn about, but his market research had little to no interest in a pair of glasses like this, especially at the price point that he wanted to market it at and would need to market it at given his technology. And he wouldn't listen to pretty much any of us, and he's probably still working on that today because he had a provisional patent. But that is an example of how having that vision is, kind of detrimental to your course as an entrepreneur. It ends up holding you back, not pushing you forward, because you're not actually listening to the people who you're going to need to actually sell it to. So pay attention to that market need. If 42% of the 90% of people who startups that fail is that they're not paying attention to their market, then that's something that we need to change in how we talk about entrepreneurship and how we teach entrepreneurship to the younger generations. They can't bank on the models of outliers. And that includes doing things like saying, well, I want my revenue to be based solely off of ads, which we hear without fail, at every single 3-Day Startup program that has ever existed. They say, well, it works for Facebook and it works for Snapchat, so why couldn't it work for me? And the answer to that is that Facebook and Snapchat are outliers, and that they have millions and millions and millions of dedicated users who make advertisements a worthwhile source of revenue. For the vast majority of entrepreneurs, they need to make something that people want and want to pay for directly or indirectly. They need to think of something that they can't rely on something as lucky as and divisive as advertisements or heavy investment to keep them going without ever finding out how to make revenue on their own. So they need to sorry for the kind of lame joke that's going to be coming. I'm sure some of you will get it. But they need to stop, thinking about their venture as, something that they can make to this astronomical level on their own. They need to collaborate with, with co-founders, with mentors, and with their community to figure out what they actually need to be doing and how they can do it to their best advantage. And listen to their customer base, who is the most important, people for you to be talking to, especially at the early stages. If you have an MVP that you're not getting feedback on, then you pretty much have nothing. So, does that mean that we want to diminish high aspirations entrepreneurs? Well, the short and long of it is no, absolutely not. It's great for people to have great aspirations and want to make big things to change the world. But when they have to do it sort of in between these two extremes. If you base your startups off of market research, off of pain points and problems that already exist in a community or a customer base that you want to address, and then create your vision and innovate in that space to solve that particular problem, not the other way around. High aspirations are fine. They're great, and they're what makes some of the greatest companies that exist today. But for most entrepreneurs, they're going to have to mitigate their risk some and really address the core problem, not just present a solution. because entrepreneurs have to be problem solvers more than anything else. That's the most important role that they serve in society. You know, without actually solving a problem or a customer need, you're going to have a hard time actually motivating someone to buy your product, to use your service, or to trust in you as a brand. And that's something that we really sort of try to send home during our actual programs. So what we want to do as a nonprofit organization is to grow entrepreneurs. And we do that through emphasizing practice over theory every time. One person, especially students sitting alone in their dorms just thinking about ideas that they think would be cool, is not really ever going to get them anywhere unless they actually try to put it into motion early on and start talking to people and getting feedback. We want them to fall in love with the problem and not the solution. Falling in love with the solution gets you nowhere, because when you have to adapt it, you're going to face a lot, you're going to give a lot of pushback, and you're not going to make the moves that you need to do to allow yourself to be successful as an entrepreneur. We want you to talk to customers early and often, and we make students do that at 3-day startup programs within the second day to make sure that they're getting that experience and actually going out and physically talking to people, not just sending out surveys online and using it as their hard data. And we want them to go through the lean startup and go through this iterative process that keeps moving until they actually have a sellable product. So they have to build their MVPs and consistently rework it, measure it, and learn from their mistakes and their feedback all the time. Not just rest on that fact that they think that they have a good idea. Because changing the narrative for young entrepreneurs can make all of the difference for motivating them to keep moving past their failure. When you teach them that failure is a part of the process and that you should fail early and fast so that you don't fail really big later on. Teaching them that, to solve the big problems that you want to solve and create those big innovations, you have to fully understand those problems, and that you alone cannot do that. It's the other people around you that will inform that, is the easiest way that we as a nonprofit and we as a community can help to shape that narrative and change it pushing forward. So, quick plug for our conference that will have a lot of this information and more coming up in the next couple of weeks. If you guys are still going to be in Austin, try to check it out. It's called Global Roundup. Tickets are on sale at 3daystartup.org/Global Roundup, and we would love to see you all there and keep this conversation going. And you can find out more about who we are and what we do at 3daystartup.org. And I would love to answer some of your questions now, if any of you guys have any. Yes?
So whenever you're telling students that they're not necessarily going to be the Steve Jobs or the Elon Musk, do y'all have an alternative in terms of like someone that they can look up to, or a company that they can look up to that is a more realistic goal?
Yes, part of our programs are that we have a culture of mentorship within the actual programs. We have local mentors that come in and work with the participants as well. Most of them are entrepreneurship experts, startup founders of their own, and they share their experiences with them. And we go through a lot of our own alumni company examples to teach them about how they can make big changes in their actual communities and still be very successful entrepreneurs, but with things that they know more about, what they can actually do with their own skills. That could be realistic for their first venture out as entrepreneurs.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Yes?
What's the duration of the program?
3 days.
3 days? Okay. Right.
More like 48 hours, really. We typically start on Friday afternoons, go through late Friday night, all of Saturday, and into Sunday afternoon as well.
It's a weekend.
Yeah, it's a weekend.
What's the cost for it?
The cost for participants is $0. That's why we partner with schools and larger organizations. We work with governments as well. And we charge them a program fee, but it's always been completely free to students, and that's been really important to our mission throughout our...
Is that the conference one of these, or is there another one coming up, like a 3-day startup?
The conference isn't an actual 3-day startup program, but we do have 2 programs every year with UT Austin, one in the fall and one in the spring. that, you know, you can contact us about and we can tell you more as well.
How much of the form?
Sorry. We have a 3-day startup program coming up with our Austrian cohort, which is coming over for a partnership that we do with the U.S. Embassy Vienna. That is going to be in a couple of weeks. And is it still active?
It is. You can
And
still
there-
apply through the
it's-
end of the week, but it'll be a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, but if you are interested in working alongside 23 emerging Austrian leaders who were selected by the U.S. Embassy Vienna, we'll be going through the same awesome program that Allison's been talking about. So if you have flexibility with your days on the 5th, 6th, and 7th of July, if you reach out to Allison, I can give her the link that you guys can apply for by the end of the week.
And we have business cards up here for you to contact me if you guys are interested in doing that.
But it's, completely free. You'll be fed all weekend.
Well-
And then you also, all week, sorry. And then you do qualify then for the discounted rate for Global Roundup as well if you go through that program. So,
Yes.
Do you always use the same curriculum for the 3 days?
Yeah, we typically do use the same curriculum because we've used it for themed programs and we've used it at, you know, colleges that are small community colleges. We've used it at Harvard. We've used it at schools in Malawi and Thailand, and we find that it's while we have the same modules every time, it is very adaptable to the different sort of mindset that we might encounter and whatever theme sometimes our partner universities like to place on it as well. Yes.
If you've done 3DS like a few times in the past, can you still get that discount or no?
they'd have the alumni.
For Global Roundup? Yeah. Have you done 3-day startup?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Come here.
Yeah, you do get the discount at Global Roundup. Yeah. Yes.
What's your feedback?
It was awesome. Just I think the biggest part was with people learning how to pivot. So, like you said earlier, sometimes you'll have people that are so fixated on their ideas that they don't value the input of others. And pivoting is one of the biggest things that is really featured in trying to launch your own company or whatever it may be. You just gotta learn to adapt, listen to others. Especially the biggest thing is the customer acquisition phase and just going out, understanding your market, because they're gonna really tell you what your direction is gonna be.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the commitment level for mentors? Is it you gotta basically drop everything for a full weekend, or is it drop in
Mentors-
for a day? Or?
Mentors, during our dedicated mentorship module, it's actually only Saturday afternoon, so it's a smallish commitment as compared to the participants themselves.
When you say going and finding your market or doing the market research and talking to these people in person, what do? Do you just go to a store and like start pulling people over and asking them questions about products and such? Like what?
Essentially, yes, but for people who have more targeted sort of markets, you know, we've had at our last 3-day start program in Austin, we had people who went to clinics and hospitals because they were doing something in medical technology and they wanted to talk to them specifically because they knew more about their products and things like that.
And people don't get mad at you for like taking up their customers' time while you're in a. Well, I know that's in a hospital setting maybe, but let's say a store. You know, they want them shopping, right?
Some might kick you out, but just learn.
Mostly they're fine with it actually once you start talking.
It depends on your approach.
It does depend on your approach. It does depend on your approach.
What about business to business? If somebody wanted to do business to business startup, like what kind of market research would you provide them? You take them to talk to like, I guess like more corporate businesses, or do you still?
It sort of depends on what kind of businesses you want to include in your B2B structure. If you want to talk to small businesses, a lot of them are open on the weekends. You can go talk to the proprietors of those businesses. We have had, you know, when I did my own 3-day startup program, we wanted to talk to lawyers and paralegals, and we ended up having to use other people's contacts, some of our own team members' contacts, and call them or set up meetings with them around the city a little bit. So, you know, we help guide you sort of depending on how much those people just sort of be out and about. But we've really never had a team just fail to do customer discovery, we always help them find a way to make it to some people who have some knowledge about whatever customer base they want to be talking to, and things like that. Let's see, how much time do I have left? Okay. I think we're gonna have to shorten it a little bit, but we're gonna do an exercise really quickly that we like to do with a lot of our participants called the Marshmallow Challenge. The Marshmallow Challenge, where essentially the goal of this is going to be to build the tallest freestanding tower that you can within 18 minutes. This is it builds collaborative thinking, which is why we do it, and it helps to show that the marshmallow really symbolizes your assumption as an entrepreneur, and it shows you that without the foundation beneath it, the assumption will pretty much knock everything to the ground. Also, it's very fun. So, we are going to give you guys, let's see if you can break up into groups of about 4 people.
Let's be in a group.
Awesome.
All right, break into groups of 4 people, and I'm going to give you guys 20 sticks of spaghetti, a meter of tape, and a marshmallow, and a meter of string. And we're going to give you guys actually more like 14 minutes.
Giving us a measuring tape? Like a measuring stick?
I'm going to measure at the end.
We can be scheduled, maybe 5.
Do not eat the marshmallows.
Don't tell me what to do.
Is it okay if we're 5 over here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we get more supplies?
No, you do not.
Always worth asking.
I'm going to go around and pass. Where are our teams?
This table somewhere.
So we can some good signs on the table.
And it looks like you guys here.
Everyone only gets one line.
Yeah, well, we actually just.
There is the one marshmallow is what you're going to have to
Yeah.
balance at the top of your tower.
Yeah, spring.
Like a
And
little
the tower is
statue.
entirely made out of spaghetti sticks
Oh, yeah.
and tape.
And
string.
tape and string, that's correct.
I'm Carlos, nice to meet you.
The goal is to make the tallest freestanding tower.
You've done this before.
How do you guys know this?
Yeah.
How do you guys
Tell us what to do.
know each other?
We were in contact
This
about
is
that.
market
Oh, okay.
research.
We put together and we